anytime I get to talk to a coach, to me, that's like one of the most fascinating things, no matter the sport. And so congratulations. I know this isn't your first book, but the book we'll talk about today, congratulations on publishing that. I hope that's been so far so good in terms of the feedback.
I'm very happy with the feedback. Uh, it's not easy to write a book. It's because it's something that I'm not used to, even though it's not the first one. And I try to improve. I love to do things that are new to me because I feel that's where I learn the most. And actually, I'm trying to apply the lessons that I give in the book and to be the first one doing it. So to get out of my comfort zone and to learn new things about myself also by doing new things and getting out of my comfort zone to be in the progress zone. I really love it because the more you do it, the more you get out of your comfort zone, the more you feel comfortable there, and the less comfortable you are when you are in your comfort zone, when I think is boring. So that was a great experience.
Yeah, I love that. We'll talk more about, I think, is maybe the foundation of the book being the progress zone versus the comfort zone. But I'd love to hear in your own words, when you think about your childhood, what's one memory that comes to mind that maybe defines it?
The first memory that comes to me is me at school, because it represented exactly everything that I was failing at. The first thing was my disability to connect with other people, to talk. I didn't have friends. More than that, I was really fearing discussions. I was fearing that people would talk to me because I knew I would freeze and I wouldn't be able to say a word. So I was alone. I was failing at school. I was really a bad student. I was not understanding how to do it to be a good student, even though I was trying. And I think that everything was coming from the perception that I had about myself that was very bad. I had a self-esteem that was close to zero. So the confidence that was coming with it. So my life was a disaster. I was waking up in the morning. Last thing I wanted to do was going to school because I knew I would have bad grades. I would feel humiliated. People would realize how not interesting I was because that was my perception about myself. That was actually one of the things that was preventing me from talking, because I was feeling that if I would talk, people would realize how stupid I was or not interesting. And I was fearing any kind of interaction. So I was avoiding even eye contact, because when you get an eye contact with someone, this someone could speak or ask you a question or say something, and I was fearing it. So I was even not having eye contact. Trying to avoid every eye contact. That's the memory I have of myself, and being sick, because I was sick all the time, because the level of stress that I was producing because of all of this was making me sick all the time.
I remember reading that you were like
was
vomiting, essentially.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I appreciate you sharing that. I mean, I can't imagine. I was thinking about like what was the moment for you, if you think about the inflection point where things began to change. Was it seeing the therapist? Was it before then, a little after then? What was that moment for you?
I explained in the book that the only safe place for me was the tennis court. I started to play tennis when I was 4, and I think I was a good player. I was one of the best juniors in my country. And that was the only place I felt that I was worth something. And actually, I was getting compliments on that. So I felt alive only on the tennis court. But when I was 15, and I never thought about doing anything else in my life than playing tennis, for me it was for sure, because that was the only thing I was good at. That was the only place I was feeling worth something. But when I was 15 and I asked my parents to, put me in a position to play potentially professionally, which means not going to a regular school, going back home at 6, having a crazy homework, they said no. So my life collapsed at that time, but I think that was the chance of my life because I could focus on myself rather than on tennis. And I was so disappointed. I was so angry at my parents that it gave me strength that I didn't have. And I realized that I didn't have tennis anymore and that my life would be a complete disaster because I wasn't able to do anything. And I was shy to a point I couldn't talk to people. I was bad at school. What would my life be? Terrible. So that gave me the kick, probably, sorry for the expression, but that gave me the kick in the ass to start moving. So in a way, the worst thing that happened to me happened to be the best one.
Wow.
And
Okay.
this is
So
where things, yeah, this is where
I,
things started to change. And I thought, I'm not going to stay like that. I mean, in my life, I was very aware of the chance that I had to be born and the gift that was life. But if it's to live the life I was living, I prefer to die. I would have preferred to die. So I thought, I mean, I have this chance to be alive. I have to find a way to make my life what I want. And at the moment, it's going to be exactly the opposite. So that, and this kick in the ass gave me the courage to, you know, start moving. And I started, one of the ways to start moving was to start a therapy that lasted 10 years. But the therapy was not enough. I had also to start moving in my life. And this is what I speak about in the book. I talk about these little victories. I started to do just one little thing that I wasn't able to do the day before or scared to do the day before. I pushed myself every day and I earned those little victories that then gave me the courage to go for maybe a little bit scariest thing or things. And day after day, that's how I built my confidence. It took me 10 years, but I did. This is what made me move for sure.
I like that quote. I had jotted it down. You said, when we're stuck in a moment of self esteem, the best way to dig ourselves out is by doing things we're good at.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. It doesn't solve everything, but you start to see yourself in a positive way. And people around start to see it also in a positive way. So the combination of the two is quite powerful. But I like also the idea that the worst moments can provide the best ones. Like because again, when I had to stop the passion of my life and the only thing I was dreaming of every day, that's where I started to move in the right direction. And I would say also the fact that I wasn't able to connect to anyone helped me develop an ability that served me all my life after, was the ability to start to read people. Because as I was unable, and I explained that in the book, I was unable to connect with people. And I needed social interactions because we are all humans. We all need social interactions. I was living my social interactions by looking and listening at other people interacting and trying to put myself in the shoes of one and then the other one and trying to understand what they were feeling. And I was just doing that to survive. But this helped me so much to develop the ability to put myself in somebody else's shoes, which is a key thing when it comes to communication.
You know, we use that term sort of rock bottom, right? That you hear, and it sounds like maybe that response. And I know in the book you explain this. Now, looking back, you don't blame your dad. It was maybe the approach that you learned over time, that how you approach him with certain situations, which I love to hear. And in a way, it's so hard, Patrick, in the moment to think, "Oh, this was the best thing that ever happened to me," even though it was the thing you wanted to do that you couldn't do anymore. In a weird way, like, do you ever think like the impact that you've had as a coach, like Patrick, the coach, maybe has had far more greater impact? I mean, I've seen some of your YouTube videos. Like millions of kids are watching these videos to learn tennis from you, right? Um, Patrick, maybe Patrick the coach has had the biggest impact than Patrick the tennis player ever could have had.
Yeah, but I mean, I agree with you. Of course, when this happened, the last thing that I thought was that it was a good thing for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's always easier when it's a few years later and you look back. But I remember that, and it helped me. For example, during COVID, for the business, and I have my tennis academy. I had already a few others, and I had a lot of other business activities that were everything was closed. Like I'm not the only one. It was a disaster, an economic disaster everywhere in the world for most of the companies. And I thought maybe it's an opportunity there. I really thought like that. And I don't think I would have thought like that if I didn't have the experience that we just talked about with my father when I had to stop tennis. And I took my team, put everyone together, and I said, listen, maybe there is a great opportunity here that we don't see and we have to see. And this is when I decided to start UTS because the players were available to play. They were not allowed to play because the professional tour was closed. And I thought they're available. That's the moment to start something. And I had the idea to start UTS at that time. And that was the start of an incredible adventure. And probably, maybe I would never have done UTS if this didn't happen. So it also served me so much as a coach because when something tough happens to my player, like a very bad loss or I mean anything difficult, I always know that it's always a great opportunity. This is where you make the important changes when players are ready. But you need to see the opportunity. If you are too much traumatized by what's happening, you don't see the opportunity. You're just sad or whatever. But it's an emotion.
Yeah.
If you're able to remove from that emotion and think, how can I use that in a positive way? You find a great opportunity. And I mean, the biggest changes I've made with players that became successful after that was always in a moment of struggle. Always.
Interesting. One of the things I really like about like when, I'm so used to watching like football coaches and they'll say a lot of things, but they'll talk for a while and they'll say nothing really. Right. And when I hear you talk about situations and players, you're very direct and transparent. And I was wondering, is that a tennis thing? Is that a cultural thing? I think it's good transparency that maybe sometimes you'll say like, oh, this person, the reason they lost is because they weren't competitive or they hadn't competed enough at this point and they took a break or like you're very direct. Where do you think that comes from?
From tennis, for sure not. This is the least transparent sport. It's a sport where you're not supposed to say things. People who talk, they're shocking to the tennis world. That's why I was always not really in the system. So I think it's more me. It's my personality. I love authenticity and honesty. I love it. As a coach, I'm not that transparent because that wouldn't make me a good coach. I think it's very important when you coach to know what to say, when to say it, and how to say it. So not all the things have to be said. Sometimes it hurts. Sometimes it's good that it hurts. Sometimes it's bad.
Mm,
Some players don't react well to transparency and it can hurt them and affect their results a lot. Some players need it. Coaching is adaptation. So I'm trying to be the best coach for this particular player that I'm working with at that time. And for that, I need to understand everything about the player to know exactly which type of coach they need. But as a person, yes, I'm very transparent. I love it. I'm not going to change because I think in this world in general, we lack transparency a lot. And the more time passes, the less we are able to express things that are not what people are supposed to say, which is kind of a cage that is difficult to accept for me. I think humans are interesting because they have different opinions, they have different personalities, and I think we should provide a world, maybe it's an utopia, but in which everybody can express themselves and their opinions. And I don't like this world that we're in at the moment, where I don't feel that's the reality at all.
Yeah.
And I think social media just brought this to another level of non-transparency, except for the haters, who are the only ones who are transparent, by the way.
Yeah.
But as a public person, you cannot be transparent. So I try to be as much transparent as I can, at least in my field, which is tennis.
It
Of
is
course, I never.
refreshing to hear. I mean, that's what I meant. Like, it is refreshing to hear, like, oh, like, okay, like that's his opinion. And I get your point too. Like, the art of coaching, the art and science of coaching, of when to move the chess pieces. I get that. It made me think of, Anna. I don't know if that's the kind of a, made up name, but you talk a lot about Anna in the book. And there was this moment where you said you were trying to rebuild her confidence, and so you would have her play these matches, and you would ask the other players to let her win but not make it obvious. And I was just thinking, like, where did you learn that? Like, I imagine most coaches are not thinking, they're not thinking like 3 steps ahead of, like, how do you build that person's confidence with the long game in mind.
You know what? My number one quality as a coach is that I didn't know anything. And that was a big chance. Because, no, it's true. I never learned the job. I never had the diplomas, or so I was a free mind. And when you don't have tools, you'd better have creativity. And that's what I tried to use. I was trying to analyze the situation as clearly as possible. Okay, this player is in this situation at the moment. This is where he or she struggles. Um, how can I solve that? When you have a strong academic background, you try to from what I've seen from outside with others, they try to uh, do what they learned instead of trying to understand the situation and find solutions. So that's why I came out with that idea. I thought she had no confidence, and if I make her play a match, she's going to lose it, because when you have no confidence, you're not winning, and I have to rebuild it. So yeah, first of all, I took people that were really bad, but I wanted to be really sure that even those guys wouldn't beat her. So I was telling the guys, okay, lose it. I mean, make sure she doesn't see it, that you do it on purpose, but lose that match. And I did this a lot. I mean, it worked.
It worked. Yeah.
It
Yeah.
worked. And when she was ready, then I stopped telling the guys to do it. But that's what it took. So when you don't have tools, it makes you more creative. And I think I learned much more this way than if I would have gone to coaching school.
Traditional. I
Yeah.
I interviewed somebody a while back, and he explained something similar. Like, he'd been in 3 different industries. He made financed and made movies, and he was an entrepreneur, sold a software company. And we talked about this concept, and he called it the limitless mindset. And so I never forgot that. And it's almost better not to have these, just these old habits of that industry, and actually come in and think freshly, like, if I could do anything, if I had a magic wand, what makes the most sense here? And so I love that, you're applying it in that situation. I did want to ask you, what's the difference between, talking about building somebody's confidence? What's the difference between building someone like Anna's confidence, maybe that is up and coming, versus building the confidence of someone that used to be the former #1 world champion?
Well, it's completely different, because when we talk about Anna, which is a made-up name, by the way, you said I was transparent, so I had to be.
Yeah.
So it's different because she had no self-esteem. So I really had to build her esteem. The way she was seeing herself was really bad. So that was really a very deep, heavy process that I engaged, and I think I helped her improve a lot, also her self-esteem. You probably, on the second case, you're probably referring to Serena, which was when we started to work together in a difficult moment, 2 years without winning a Grand Slam, and she just lost in the first round of Roland Garros, and that's when she called me. I found out with Serena that, she's been Serena because, of course, she has incredible qualities as a tennis player, but she has something that nobody had, her mindset, the way she was seeing things, the way she was processing. And, I mean, I didn't know her much before, but I've been analyzing her a lot because I was such a fan, always. I always thought for me, she embodies more than anyone the champion mindset. I always thought so. And when I started to work with her, of course, on a lot of things, I was impressed with her mindset. But on some, I was surprised. And I was thinking, from what I know about her, even though I didn't know her, this is not Serena. And I found out that those 2 years of difficulties kind of affected also how she was thinking on some things. And this was affecting the results. So it's kind of a vicious circle. So you have bad results, it affects the way you think, and the way you think affects the results, and then these things never end. And there was so first tournament we do together is Wimbledon, and she's struggling big time, 6-4 in the third, 7-5 in the third. In the first round, second round, she's this close to losing several matches, but she's fighting like an animal because this she never lost, and she finds a way out, and then she's in the quarters, but her level is very low to win a Grand Slam at that time. Not her level of play, but she's emotionally so she's not good emotionally, it affects her level of play so badly.
You're saying her
And
talent is compensating for her esteem or confidence at that point, essentially, right?
completely. But I know that if she doesn't start to think like Serena, she's not going to win the Grand Slam. So I have to reconnect her with herself. And there were two important moments during this Wimbledon that changed everything. And after that moment, she became almost unbeatable because she won Wimbledon in singles, in doubles. 3 weeks after, won the 2 gold medals at the Olympic Games, singles and doubles. And then 1 month later, she wins the US Open. At the end of the season, she wins the WTA Championship, and then she's back to number one. So that moment, everything clicked. What was that moment? Two moments, actually. The first one is when she qualifies for the semifinals. I'm there at the restaurant, and she runs to me with a big smile saying, Patrick, whatever happens on Monday, I'm back into top 3 in the world. And I'm really shocked because I mean, she's Serena Williams. She has 12 Grand Slams, and she's telling me that she's happy to be top 3. Something's wrong. Serena doesn't think like this. And so as I'm shocked, my reaction is this when I say, yes, and she said, but it's great, no? I said, but no, I don't understand what's great about that. And that's it. And in the evening, she sends me a text and she says, sorry for what I said today. Number 3 is terrible. Actually, number 2 also. And I think it reconnected her with how she was thinking. I think that was a key moment, really. The second key moment is before the semifinals, because she was playing badly because of her emotional state, but she was fighting so much, she was finding a way to win. But we had to find also the real Serena back. And before the match, I always do a briefing before the match. I told her, I didn't meet Serena yet. I would like me to be introduced to Serena. Can Serena show up in this semifinal? Because otherwise we're gonna go back home. And I want to see the real Serena. And she smiled. She really liked it. She played incredible, and then she won the tournament. But I think, so to answer your question, Serena, for me, my job was always to make sure she was staying connected to the real Serena, which means making sure that she was always thinking and processing the way Serena thinks and processes. And that's why Serena is so special, and that's why she's the greatest player of all times, because she doesn't think like when Serena would lose in a final of a tournament, the trophy will end up in the rubbish bin before she leaves the stadium. She doesn't give a shit about, I mean, she would give something that reminds her that she lost in the final. I mean, impossible. She doesn't, yeah. This is Serena. But that's why she's so exceptional. So whenever in her career she was connected to herself, she was, for me, almost unbeatable. Whenever she was not, she was always a good player because of her assets, but nothing special. What makes her special is here and here. That's it.
Okay. Wow, that's amazing. When you think of, and maybe she's this sort of, you know, when I think of like Michael Jordan, there's sort of like one, right? One of one. But when you think of people either you coached, admired from afar, studied, like you mentioned, um, maybe you studied Federer. Are there a couple traits of the highest performers in tennis, a few commonalities that you've identified like they've got? Because if one person has, and that's one thing, it's not really common amongst them, right? It's just special to them. I've heard you talk a little bit about Roger, and like, no, I've heard you say like, if you try to imitate Roger, you're doomed for failure because he can only do what he did. But when you think of the common traits of the highest performers that you've coached or studied, what are one or two that come to mind?
First one, passion. And I think it's true for every exceptional person in every field. Drive and passion. I think the biggest musicians in the history are completely obsessed with their music, completely obsessed. It takes everything. So the passion, I mean, Serena was on a tennis court all day or in the fitness, and when she was coming back home, she was watching tennis on YouTube and trying to find new things. And, the passion, the drive. This is, and on the other hand, like very good tennis players, top 50 in the world, I asked them, do you watch tennis when you come back home? And the answer is, come on, I'm playing tennis all day. I'm not going to come back home and watch tennis. Are you crazy? Okay, I get it. Yeah, but this is not a passion then. So the passion is number one for sure. Their self-esteem, but I would say self-esteem when it comes to tennis, because some people don't have such a very high self-esteem about them as people, but when it comes to tennis, their self-esteem is at 10 out of 10. They think they're great. They think they can beat anyone. It's what I call respect, which is not the right word, but I like to say that biggest champions, they don't respect anyone. Of course, they do respect people. They respect, but I said it. I said this on social media about Victoria Mboko, the young player who's 18 and who just won a Masters 1000. There is good and bad respect. To respect people is good, but when the respect for people makes you lose because you think they're better than you, this is not a good respect. And this is a common trait too. They think nobody's better than them.
Is it a lack of humility, you think, or it's having humility, or no?
No, I always tell this story. When Roger and Rafa were winning everything, a young Novak came. He was 19 or 18, and he plays in the second round of a Grand Slam. He plays Roger. He's interviewed the day before, and he said, I'm going to beat this guy. And everybody said, who the fuck does he think he is? This guy is so cocky. And there were a lot of bad articles, I remember, at the time. And I remember then he didn't win that match, but he ended up beating both of them and becoming number one and then the greatest of all times. He answered afterwards when he gave many interviews, and a lot of people asked him, "Oh, you seem cocky," and he said, "I just have an incredible confidence in myself. You have to see yourself great, because if you don't see yourself great at what you're doing, you're not going to make it. You're not going to beat the best players in the world if you think they're better than you. You have no chance." It's not cockiness, it's confidence. And people confuse that a lot.
What is what is the difference? Where's the line between highly confident and arrogance?
It's a good question. I prefer someone arrogant than someone who doesn't respect himself. Really, really. Maybe arrogance is too much. It's like overplaying it. Maybe this is called arrogance, but to think that nobody's better than you at what you're doing if you want to be a champion, I think it's a necessity. If you start a tournament and think this one and this one and this one are better than me, you're not going to make it. You're not going to, I've seen that so much in my career. Players who are tennis-wise better than this one is better than this one, but this one sees this one here. Every time he
Mm.
has opportunities to break, he never makes it because he cannot even conceive that he's going to beat this guy. That slows people down in their career so much. So this confidence that nobody's better than you, I mean, I would say, let's put it that way. Arrogance would be to think that nobody's better than you, ever. This would be arrogance. Um, but you can accept, and this is confidence, is to think this, to think the same, but to accept that on that special day, the guy was better than you. This we can
It-
accept. Okay, today the guy was better than me. I lost, he's better than me. I have to accept it. But in general, no, he's not better than me. I'll find a way to show that I'm better than him. I think that's the right way to put it.
I love that. It's something I've talked about quite a bit and thought about quite a bit. We got to talk about this progress zone. I think it's maybe the most fundamental aspect or foundation of the book. I'd love to hear in your own words, like how do you identify the progress zone and what can we do to live there more often?
I mean, that's the key to success. The key to success is confidence. And I talked a lot about it, especially in the first chapters, because without confidence, nothing can be achieved. And confidence is not a gift. Nobody's going to come and give it to you. You have to build it. And you build it with little victories. And when you have enough confidence, even just a little bit, but you need it, you can start to get out of your comfort zone. In the comfort zone, you just do things that you know already. You don't feel threatened ever. You don't take any risk. You just do constantly the things that you know. And you talk to people that you know. You do things that you know. You don't learn anything. You don't progress. You're not going to achieve what you want, what you dream of, what
You're
your goals
static.
are.
You're just static.
You're static. Yeah. So the progress zone starts when your comfort zone stops. And it can be something very little. It can be, you know, you don't have to start with big things because, you have to accept that you start low with doing little things that are out of your comfort zone, and it's fine. You shouldn't judge yourself. You should accept where you are. I love this quote from Arthur Ashe that says, which I think is the best quote about competition. He says, start where you are, use what you have, do what you can. I love it. Yeah, I'm here today. This is what I can do. I can do much more, but I'm going to do it. And even if it's difficult, I'm going to do it. So this is where the progress zone is. And you have 100 opportunities per day to live in the progress zone. People just don't take them. Don't take them.
Yeah. Patrick, you said the
And
word judgment,
yeah,
self-judgment. To me, that is something I can't speak for other people. It's something I probably do all the time unknowingly. Um, a therapist pointed it out one time. They said, there you go again. And I imagine if I'm doing it, someone at the highest levels of sports are probably doing it as well. And so how can we do a better job of identifying that we're judging ourselves and how do we maybe do it less?
um, I think it has a lot to do with the perception of failure. Uh, I do something I don't know how to do it. If I don't succeed first time, it's normal. If I succeed first time, wow, that's unbelievable. So it's all about being kind with yourself. And I mean, the simplest example is the example of the babies when they start walking. Do you think that they stand up and they walk first minute? No, they fall 500 times. And they're completely okay with that because their psychology doesn't judge yet. They're not in the adult world where everything is about judgment all the time. People judge others, and we're very much influenced by that. Actually, Americans are doing much better than Europeans for that. That's one of the big qualities of Americans in general. You guys are more supportive than judgmental. I mean, generally speaking. And that's why athletes are better also in general in the US than in Europe. So first, be kind with yourself and accept the idea that it might not work first minute. And on the way to success, you'll get a lot of feedback, and the feedback will be that you didn't make it, which is fine and completely fine. I mean, the examples of people who made incredible success and failed 500 times before, I mean, it's true for everyone. I mean, all the people that did great things failed 100 times. You have to accept it. And it makes, I mean, there are three ways to react to a failure. The first one is to blame others. I think it's the worst one, because then you learn nothing. The second one is to blame yourself and be judgmental on yourself, which is better because you have
I
a
think
chance to
that's the
learn
most
something.
common, probably, right? To
Yeah.
blame
Oh,
ourselves.
no,
Yeah.
to blame others
Yeah.
is the most common. Trust
Oh.
me, by far, by far. It's never their fault. Never. Okay. So their future depends on other people. Cool. Good luck in life.
Yeah.
uh, but yeah, the third one is to say, okay, I mean, I don't get what I wanted to. What did I do wrong? And it's fine. I'm going to change that for next time. And then it's a constant learning process. So that's amazing. Just see it as a learning process. You don't want to be great tomorrow. You want to be great when you're ready to be great. But on the way to be great, you're going to fail, but you're going to learn and then you're going to be better. And so it's fine. It's fine. I'm not saying it's easy, but first, intellectually, I would say it's the first step is to understand that intellectually. Then accept the idea that you're going to fail and that look at all the people you admire. They failed 100 times. Are you judging them because they failed? No. Your favorite player that you love so much, that you admire, he lost. Do you not admire him anymore because he lost? No. So if he can lose, you can lose too. It's fine.
Yeah. I heard you talk about, it's funny because I was going to ask you about Federer's commencement speech. You already have a video on the whole thing. And so I was like, okay, he's already covered it. But I think your takeaway, maybe the takeaway from the part of the commencement speech was that he said about, I lost 54% of the points that I played. And I think you reflected on it. And you're basically saying, even at that level, you need to be in control of your emotions, because you're going to lose points, and it can't be the end of the world. And I'll be honest, like, so I coached my son's baseball team this past season, first time coaching. And as you know, playing is very different from coaching. And I took some outside courses and had kind of a coaching mentor and things like that. I mean, I think it helped quite a bit. But it was my first time. So I felt like I was learning on the fly. And we had a player who was maybe one of the better players. Every time he was a pitcher, every time he would throw a ball, every time it was like the end of the world. But in baseball, you have to throw 4 balls until it's over, right? But it wasn't even the fourth. It was every pitch. And when I tried to ask coaches for advice, they said, some of these are actually deeply rooted upbringing challenges. Like, you're not going to solve this, man, in one game or a couple practices. And so, but going back to Roger, about controlling your emotions if you lose 1 point, it just made me think of this kid, because I was not successful in helping him, even though we tried. We talked a lot about it. Is that the big takeaway in terms of, you think Roger's speech was really understanding a loss of a point for what it is, but not sort of living in that, lost point, and just being able to move on to the next play?
Yeah. So he didn't say he lost 54%, but he won 54% of the points, just to
thank you.
make it clear. Yeah, but I know that's what you meant. But
yeah.
yeah. So yeah, he won 50 throughout his whole career. He won only 54% of the points, and he won 20 Grand Slams, and he's one of the greatest of the history. Imagine the other guys. I think tennis is the most interesting sport in the world for that, because It's a lesson for every player to control their frustration and deal with their frustration, because even the greatest loses almost as many points as he wins throughout his whole career. That's crazy. What does he mean when he says that? He means two things. First, you have to accept that you're not going to win all the points. So if when you lose the points, it affects you in a way that you lose many more points, you're going to lose every match. Second idea, you win a match not by winning so many more points than the opponent, but by winning the important points, the break points that you need to make, the break points that you face. So it's a learning experience in accepting and dealing with frustration, because it's a crazy frustrating sport, which is very helpful for the future life, actually, because when you know how to deal with frustration, I think you deal with better with a lot of situations in life. And you need to understand how you can be successful when it really counts, when it's the money time, and you have maybe 3-4 moments in a match, that 3-4 points that will decide if you win or lose the match. 3-4 points. And on those 3-4 moments, the emotional level is crazy high, because you know it's now. So you know if you lose that point, there might be big consequences. So all the players, both of the players, when they play against each other, the emotional level is very high. So it's also learning how to deal with your emotions so it doesn't affect you in a way that makes you lose those points. That's the second very important lesson of tennis that you need to learn. And when I had this long discussion with Richard Williams, way before coaching Serena, that's what he explained to me. He's an incredibly smart man. Richard explained to me that he understood that you win a tennis match or you lose it if you're able to win the 2-3 points that are the most important points, and at the emotional level is very high. And he said, I always thought that the most confident player of the two will win those points, because a confident person will deal better with the emotion than a non-confident one. So he said, my whole work was to make sure that my daughters would become extremely confident people, which is a very interesting concept, which is true, by the way. And actually, if you look at the players when they are on a winning streak, when things are going well and they're winning a lot of matches, their confidence level is very high, and they're playing those points so much better, because they deal better with the emotion, because deep inside they think they're going to make it. They believe they're going to make it because they have a lot of positive experiences.
What a
And
great
actually,
parenting tip as well.
yeah, no, for sure. And actually, I'm coming back to something we talked about earlier, talking about the little victories and all these things that are so important. You, me, everybody in this world, our psychology is the result of all the experiences that we went through and what we made of them, and all the opinions that it created about ourselves and beliefs that we have about ourselves. So that was my point with Anna, to make her win a lot of matches so she would change her perception of herself as a tennis player. And it worked. Not only that, we did a lot of other things, but I put everything together to build it. So yeah, no, he's extremely smart, Richard Williams, and I think what he did is unique in the history of sports in general.
Yeah, it's amazing. You had to prepare for a Roger match, right? Like on the other side. How do you begin to prepare for a game plan for someone like that?
I mean, when he was at his best, I mean, first of all, you have to have the player who has the weapons. But let's say, I mean, I'm not coaching Novak. I'm coaching a player who's 20 in the world and he's going to play against Roger. First of all, I would tell him what's going to happen. I will tell him, okay, Roger is going to start the match like crazy, like hitting winners all over the place, like a boxer. I was saying I was commentating the matches at that time, and I was saying, Roger, for me, it's Mike Tyson. He enters the ring and bam, 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 he punches you everywhere and you are knocked out. So that's how he starts the match. So be ready. This is what's going to happen to you. Now, what can make you successful is let him get bored. because after he kills you, he's up 3-love in 1.5 minutes.
You know what
I
they
mean,
said
it's
about
too
Mike
easy.
is with Mike, you need to last. If you can outlast him, you can beat him. So if you can get past the fifth round, you've got a shot.
Yeah, but it's not easy to pass the fifth round.
True.
So for Roger, if you are too affected by being killed that way, finished. So just it's gonna happen. Because when Roger plays like this, there's not one guy on that planet that can play against him. So let him. It's gonna happen. Don't be affected and be ready for what's coming next, because then he's gonna get bored. He's gonna get bored and he's gonna slow down because he's bored, because it's too easy. And this is where you can get in under his skin and get him frustrated and let him be bored. Let him win easy. I mean, even if you don't want, he's gonna make it anyway. So
Yeah.
it's not up to you. Then I mean, I'm not gonna tell anyone to play like Rafa, because I think only Rafa had this lefty forehand on. But I would tell the guy definitely to block him on his backhand, make him slice the backhand, and then take control of the court. Don't let Roger take control. If he's the one in charge, you have no chance. So probably, I mean, I would go more into details how to do it, but yeah, that was the
That's
game
where it
plan. I
starts.
mean, yeah.
Did you ever beat him on when you were coaching and you had a player?
No, because actually, yes, because Stefanos beat him at the Australian Open. Yeah,
Okay.
but I was not the coach of Stefanos, but he was with me. He was with me since he was 16. I was on the court with him, but his father was his coach. But I was pretty much
Also
involved.
helping out. Okay. Interesting. When you think about just moments like your coaching, a coaching moment you were most proud of, I was thinking about that story that you were telling with Holger, the guy that you're currently coaching. And he came to you, and I think he was in a slump, and he said, I want to win the next 3 tournaments. And you said any expert would kind of think that he's in over his head. Maybe he's kind of crazy, right? And he ends up winning like 15 of the 16 next matches. Is that one of the moments where you feel like your impact as a coach? Is that one of your most proudest moments?
I mean, that was one for sure. It's even more than that, because he lost, I think, 7 times in a row in the first round before we start. He was number 30 in the world. It was his best ranking, and he was the 3 tournaments he was talking about was one ATP 250, one ATP 500, and one ATP 1000 with all the best players in the world. And he said, "I want to win the 3 in a row," which sound completely unrealistic. But I never think like this. And if he believes it, that's amazing. Amazing. And he really believed it, that he could make it. And actually, he almost did, because he won the first one, final of the second one, and he won the third one, beating Alcaraz, Djokovic, and in total 5 top 10. Crazy. Is it the? I don't know. I mean, that was definitely a good one. That was one that was interesting with Pavlyuchenkova, because it says a lot about communication. At that time on WTA Tour, you were allowed to go on court and coach your player. And I had 2 very good ones with her. One was in Indian Wells. So she was 300 in the world. And in 1.5 years, she's number 27. So that was big, big progress. And she starts to play the best players in the world on the biggest courts. So Indian Wells, she's playing Radwanska, number 3 in the world. And Radwanska has a weak serve. She's a great player, but her serve is a weakness, especially second serve. And she doesn't take advantage of any second serve, my player. She's calling me for coaching. And when I enter that court to talk to her, in my mind, I'm going to tell her to be much more aggressive on second serve and take advantage, because she can't break her. She doesn't find a way to break her. And when I stand in front of my player, I look at her eyes and I see the panic. And in a split second, I think, if I tell her to be more aggressive in a moment of panic, I'm going to create even more panic. So I said the opposite of what I thought she should do. I told her to take her time on second serve, don't take any risk, just put the ball in play. And I told her, anyway, her second serve is not hurting you at all. So just put the ball back and start to play. You don't have to take a risk. So I said the exact opposite of what I thought she should do. But by doing so, I made her feel much more confident, much more relaxed, much less stress. And what happened was I left the court, Radvanska served, and Pavlyuchenkova hit 4 return winners and won the match, which was crazy
You knew
because
what she needed in that moment, even though,
no, but
yeah.
I told her the opposite of what I thought she should do, and she did the opposite of what I told her to do, which was actually what I wanted her to do. I mean, if you think about it, this
Yeah.
is crazy. This is crazy because the confidence she felt gave her the courage to take more risk, even though I didn't tell her. She did it naturally. So but that's everything about coaching. Everything about
Yeah,
coaching.
I love that. Um, when you think of Bob Brett, what do you think the greatest lesson that he taught you was when it came to coaching?
He was great at having the right relationship with the player. He was always close because you need to be very close, but always above. He was creating that respect
Ah, yes.
that is so important. So the player was always looking up to him, always. And that was very strong coming from him because he's a very small guy, very tiny. He was
Frail.
because,
Yeah.
yeah, frail, exactly. Unfortunately, he passed out. Um, yeah, so in a world where all athletes are big and strong, and so to see the players, they were looking at him. They were always told her they were looking down at him, but in their mind they were looking up at him all the time. So that was great. He was a great teacher for me. I
Did,
actually learned a lot from him.
did you get to reconcile with him before he passed?
Um, Not really. We talked. We talked, but I didn't know he was that sick. I didn't know it was. I happened to know it just maybe 1 day or two before he passed. He passed away because his daughter called me to tell me.
Wow. Okay. Man. Yeah, it seems like he was just such a in your book, he's such a wonderful relationship that got complicated that I could tell you revered him, even through everything that happened, you revered him, it seems like.
For
Yeah.
sure. But sometimes it's good to have complicated relationships. I mean, not in this case because I wish we could have come back to the relationship we had before. Same with Baghdadis, I wish. But with Richard Williams, for example, the start was really rough because he's really a tough guy.
Really?
We had so many fights, like really, really, really bad ones, and we
Like
ended
he
up.
thought you should do this and you were doing something different in terms of coaching or
Uh, I think he was testing me a lot. He was shouting at me. He was testing me a lot. So we had some, I mean, I tell some stories in the book actually where Serena's in Wimbledon first tournament and she's struggling, but she wins. And I go to the fitness because I know she's going to come to the fitness after her match to the cool down. So I go to the fitness to talk to her, and she's not here yet, but Richard is here. And in front of everyone, the players, the coaches, he shouts at me, "What the fuck is happening? Why is she playing so bad? What are you doing?" Shouting at me in front of everyone. So he did stuff like that. But so that's why I said we had big fights. So I just told him, listen, I just two things. First, if you want me to respect you, you better respect me because if you don't, I'm not going to respect you either, and you're not going to like it. And second, it's a good question, but you're coaching Serena for 30 years. I do for 1 week, so maybe I should ask you the question, and in front of everyone. So he tried to humiliate me, and he ended up being humiliated. So, but we had a few fights like that. Um, but we ended up having a great relationship, and he was incredible to me afterwards, like really incredible.
okay.
And he was my big he was such a supporter. At He was supporting me so much. So sometimes when it's tough
Yeah.
moments, it builds also. It can build a great relationship.
No, I love hearing that. I mean, you obviously talk about that the relationship with Serena quite a bit. And it was such a great run. When did you know it was the beginning of the end? Because it sounded like it wasn't a quick moment.
I mean, when she was not practicing anymore. Uh, so I was thinking, and this is also, I don't know if I said it in the book, but if I didn't, I say it now. I think it's also a big mistake of mine because she was not practicing anymore, not playing tournaments either. So, but she was not retiring, and I was telling her, "Do you want to play or you want to retire because you're not practicing?" So you have to take a decision. If you want to retire, it's no problem. But if you don't, then you should practice. But this is not clear. And this lasted 8 months like this. And I think my biggest mistake was I should have been there and tell her, come on, Serena, we go on the court and we practice. That's what she needed at that time from me, and I didn't do it. So I think, yeah. And after 8 months, I told her, okay, are you going to play Roland Garros or no? Because if you want to play Roland Garros, we need to practice. We need to restart. Otherwise, you're not going to be ready. Well, I don't know. I think she was waiting for me to push her, and I didn't get it, and I didn't do it. And then I told her, listen, if on Monday you're not at practice, I consider you retiring, and I'm out, which was not the right way to put it. And that's how it ended. So that was not a good ending.
Okay. Well, I mean, I appreciate just the reflection. It's like a memoir. You're reading about building your mindset, but it's definitely a memoir of reflection in the book. It
But that's what I'm
also,
saying. We
yeah,
we all do mistakes. I mean,
yeah,
of course, it's not fine, but you have to accept it. You're not going to do everything right. Nobody
yeah.
does.
It's just at this level, most people don't admit their mistakes, and so the fact that you know, you basically say like, "This is what I would have done differently." It made me think of Aravan Rezai. You said that she needed you more than any time in that collaboration. Her confidence was shot. When that disappeared, so did her motivation. And you said that the crisis was something you had seen before. I'm just wondering, like, why do you feel like in that moment maybe you didn't recognize that?
That's true. I mean, in a lot of my previous collaborations, I felt that my motivation level was not in sync with the player's motivation level, and that was something was wrong. I shouldn't be there, because I always gave 150% for my players, day and night, traveling all year, having no life. I mean, same for them, but they're making millions.
You were training with
That's
her, right? I mean, you were working out with her, like
Yeah,
literally doing
yeah.
the workouts and
Yeah, I lost 8 kilos in 4 months, and I was not fat, I tell you. So I was eating the same as her. And even when I was not with her, I was still following the diet that I was giving to her, because otherwise I would feel I was cheating, and didn't have to. So no, yeah. So when I say motivation, I mean, for some players who don't see themselves that high, you help them reach a height they never thought possible. And then their motivation starts to be lower because for them, it's even more than what they expected. And then they don't want to make the same efforts and stuff like that. Um, and this is where I always had a problem when I felt the motivation of the player was way way too far from mine, which is one way to see it. But you can also see it in a different way. Yeah, but my job is to find a way to remotivate the player, to make him or her believe that they can go much higher, and then making them do the job, which I honestly didn't do in a lot of cases in the past. So I learned from that too. There is always a way, and it's my job. So I think I've always been honestly great to bring players to a level that they never ever thought possible.
she went to
All
like
of them,
15, right? Like from
yeah. Yeah, but
yeah.
she was 24 years old when we started, and her best ranking was 60, and she was 60. And in 8 months of time, from 60 to 15, winning a Masters 1000 in Madrid, beating number one, number two, number three, number four, number five in the world. That was quite incredible, honestly. And for me, she had the level to win a Grand Slam at that time. But she was not seeing herself as a Grand Slam winner at all. So
Is
Yeah,
that
but
I need to go back to the reconciliation. Did you, because you read the book and you're like, I wonder if they are still friends, or I wonder, like, did they reconcile? Obviously she's still fairly young. Is that a relationship do you feel like you've mended and learned from over time?
yeah, she's not young anymore. She's
Yeah,
born in 87, so she's
like
38.
38. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I mean, she was disappointed, but I mean, I told her that's the rule. I mean, I was fair because I told her that's the rule. If you break the rules, I'm out. If you follow the rules, I'm in 150%. She broke the rules. I said, okay, I'm out. And she was happy because she said, anyway, it's too much. I can't handle that anymore.
Okay.
I said, okay, fine. I mean, fair enough, no problem. So she stopped. But 1 year after, she was 220 in the world. And then she was a bit angry at me. And she said, I made a big mistake. I want to come back. And I said, no, sorry, but now I'm working with someone else. I cannot say to the other person, okay. So, yeah. I mean, I don't know how we are. I don't know. For me, I'm fully in emotionally. And for me, I can completely work with someone and stop working with that person. But for me, it doesn't change the relationship. For other people, not always. Even in my business, I have people I'm working with for 25 years. I mean, actually, they became friends, like close friends. One is the godfather of my kids, and he has a huge position in my company. And he said to me one day, I know that if I don't do the job well tomorrow, you're going to fire me straight away. I said, 100%. Of course. No, 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 for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, it's business.
Right.
But for me, it doesn't change anything about the feelings I have for you and the person you are. Maybe for you it will. For
Yeah.
me, no.
You can't always it sounds like you can't always control the way that someone else feels, right? About
Feels
a
no,
situation.
you can try to do the best out of it and try to explain, but I mean it can hurt people, and I understand that. And to not to make the difference between the professional and the personal, for me it's a problem. But in our job it's difficult because we live with them. When you coach a player, you are with them every single day of your life, from the morning at breakfast to the lunch to the dinner and all day long. It's crazy how, I mean, so of course it's professional, but it's difficult to not being emotionally involved and make really the difference. And I understand that when you stop working with a player, and that's true on both sides, by the way, it hurts people. I understand it.
Yeah. What do you think we get wrong about motivation?
I think there is no motivation if there is no self-confidence. Zero. Zero. Because, and what people, a lot of players are, people say, oh, he's not motivated. Of course he's motivated. I always say this to coaches when they tell me this player is not motivated. I said, come on, this guy is spending his whole life playing tennis from the morning to the evening, and he's not motivated. Makes no sense. Of course he's motivated. But when you don't deeply think that you're going to achieve your goals, to have the motivation, what we call the motivation, to give 100%, they're not doing it. Because if you give 60%, there is a voice that tells you, I could have done better if I would have given 100%. So in a way, you save your confidence by doing that. They don't do it consciously. It's subconscious, but it's a way to, preserve a bit of confidence. So that's why I'm saying always that confidence is key. In order to give 100%, you need to deeply believe in yourself. If you don't, you're not going to give 100%. That's not true. So I think it's one of the misconceptions about motivation, I would say.
I love that. I was thinking about just a couple kind of quick questions. If you got a few more minutes,
Let's
one
do
of the
it.
okay. I was thinking just about like this is one of my favorite quotes. I was curious if you had quotes that maybe you've used with your players or that are really instilled in you. I know there's quite a few in the book. One that stood out to me is you said, and this is from Socrates, but you pointed out, I know that I know nothing. The acceptance of ignorance is the beginning of wisdom. That really stuck with me. I was just like, wow. That will humble you real quick. Is there another quote? Maybe it's that one that you feel like has really resonated as you're coaching other players that maybe we can think about and reflect on as well.
Of course, that's why it's always dangerous to have a strong academic formation, because then you think, oh, now I know, but you know nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing. And I think that was as I said, my biggest strength is that I knew nothing. So I was creative, I was finding ideas, I was analyzing, I was trying to understand. And I've seen coaches being successful once and think, oh, now I know how to make players be successful. And actually, that's the only time they became successful, because all the other collaboration, they just crashed because they thought they knew. When you start to think you know, it's the beginning of the end. So yeah, I think it's a very important quote. But there are a few others I love. Be yourself. What is the exact quote? Be yourself. Everyone else is already taken.
That's
I
a
love
good
this
one.
one.
You said that your most powerful coaching trait is that I don't listen to what people say, I hear what they think. I thought that was pretty awesome.
Yeah. Because listen to that. If you live in London or in Miami and you say this sentence, the weather is nice, do you think that means the same for the one who lives in London and the one who lives in Miami?
No.
Not really, huh?
I mean, I'm in Portland and Oregon, and the weather is usually not very nice.
So you understand my
Yeah.
point.
Yeah.
So if you live in London, it means it's super cloudy, but it doesn't rain and it's cold. If you're in south of France, it means it's warm and there is not one single cloud in the sky, but it's the same words. So you have to understand what's behind the words. This is what I mean by hearing what people think. And also, we live in a world where people most of them don't say exactly what they think.
I appreciate you leaning into this.
Thank you very much. It was
All
a
right, great
pleasure.
meeting you. Likewise, likewise.